All right, it is now 9:30 at night, and I have unspiked coffee. Let's rock and roll. All right, so I figured that covering a little bit of the CMA that I have my AI assistant do is probably a good idea. So let me go ahead and start this bad boy up. You'll also see when it starts going the document viewer, right? So what I do is I actually click over and I can hit either chat or document viewer. You know, this document viewer is basically, these are all in a folder that are on my computer at home. Keeps all my documents safe, not in the cloud. I just access it through kind of like what you call portal. Let's just call it a portal, right? I'm able to search documents, which is kind of nice. And I can search it by either the parcel number or the address. And all of these are address-based documents. So looks like it popped open the CMA there. So you can see it's got all the basic stuff. This is the one on Amanda Place that we did a CMA on in the last video. And like I said, brokers fact check me on this one, but I think that's a reasonable price, $250,000 to $265,000. Now you'll also notice that I have it do adjustments. Now, one thing I want to do here is I'm going to kind of pause right here for just a second. GLA is gross living area. Now, I was taught a long time ago, and when you're getting into brokerage, you can have people teach you, but you essentially have to pretty much figure out how to do CMAs on your own for the most part. And even if people are teaching you, you're getting a lot thrown at you, so you just may not even understand it in general, right? And so it takes a little bit of extra time to where you need to learn it yourself and dig in. I've been doing this for about like 4 years now as a broker. An investor, I've been an investor for about 8 years. When I was learning about real estate investing, long-term rentals, I learned that in order to depreciate a property, which is a big tax incentive that real estate investors get, the IRS has very specific rules on how you can calculate what your deduction is. And it starts with figuring out what the building costs. You can take your total tax value. If you go onto tax record, they will actually take and give you the building value, the land value, and then the total tax value. Divide that building value into the total tax value, and it gets you a number. For single family houses in this area, it's around like 80 to 87% is the building. And then what you do is you multiply that by how much you paid for the property. So if your building is 83% of your value, you're going to multiply that times the purchase price of $100,000. And all of a sudden, there you go. You got your building value of $83,000 or whatever the percentage was that I said. That last year carried over into my comparative market analysis, literally like November or December. And I've been doing this for years. So I was like, well, wait. Why don't I just do the same thing that I do for figuring out depreciable basis and figure out what the actual, value or sale price portion of the house was, and then just adjust for that? That's what I did, and that's what I do now. And then, of course, I have lots. You see over there to the right side. You'll see to the right side that it says lot, and then I adjust for land differently and separately. And honestly, that in my opinion is a heck of a lot more accurate, but who knows? I could be completely wrong. I digress. Let's move on. I also adjust for time too, because obviously I figured out by creating my own Case-Shiller index that last quarter, Greenville appreciated by 7.4%. All right, now this part is extremely important in my opinion, and this is something that my buddy Frank Fields actually taught me about, and I've taken it and run with it. What I do is I actually take a look at the tax assessment comparison. So back here, we adjusted the prices for the properties. Well, what I then do is I take that and I divide that into the actual tax assessed value and see what the difference is. Now, by itself, that number means nothing, but when I take all of my comparables and I put them, and I look at the tax ratio, I can then see that they're starting to cluster, right? So the middle one is 95.3%. Maybe that's not as collectively good of a comp as, the first two, which are 114, 115, and 107, which are all close to, clustered together. All right, so anyway, I digress. Let's keep on going. That's just something that I like to use on my comparative market analysis. Also, I have done deal scores. Okay, so, and if you take a look, Amanda Place, which is the best match, 2544 Amanda Place, score 107, that was 100 and I guess 14 tax. And then the next one, 626 Winterfield Drive, right? 93, which was the other one that clustered close together on the tax end. But of course, then you have Primrose, which is the opposite. It was 107. But anyway, I digress. But I came up with my own scoring system to help me also kind of figure out, okay, are these clustering the way they need to cluster? And of course, the cover my butt. I always have the disclosures. This ain't no appraisal, anything like that, right? So anyway, that is the comparative market analysis that my AI assistant creates for me. Like I said, I don't just take it, say, hey, here you go, and do it, and then just not, do another CMA and kind of fact check myself, right? But one of the things that I found out is that I have a very high confidence in it. Now, don't get me wrong. If you go into rural areas, try doing one of these in Grifton or, LaGrange or places like, well, LaGrange is getting better. But it's harder to do that because there's just not data. When there's not as much data, it's harder. So in Greenville, Winterville, Farmville, places like that, Aden, there's a high accuracy with this because it has the data. And the thing is, I give it the data. I clean the data to make sure it works. I use MLS data, but I also put a heavy emphasis on public data. In fact, for the CMA, it finds the comparable sales using public record and then checks for only one reason if it was on the MLS, and that is, that's it. The only thing it does is check to see if it sold on the MLS so I can confirm whether or not it did sell on the MLS. I hope you enjoyed that and found it helpful, and maybe you learned a little bit about how brokers do CMAs.